think it is right at 1 o'clock. Just want to double check. Are you guys able to see my screen and can you guys hear me okay? Just want to make sure.
Yes, it looks great, Tracy. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. All right, wonderful. Well, then we will jump into the content. I'm excited to be with you guys today. My name is Tracy McMullen and been with Interrail now 15 years. I hit that celebration point this month, so that's really exciting. I did want to let you guys know that we are going to be hosting a Hyperion Solutions Conference. A 2020 version. So this is going to be entirely virtual since we're not quite back to the level of travel and gathering just yet. So encourage you guys to sign up. It's completely free. We have, I think, over 400, I think we may even be over 500 at this point, lots of attendees. We've been working on the schedule and it's really exciting. I'm already, there's several days worth of sessions where I want to go to 2 or 3 sessions all at the same time. What's great about and exciting about it being virtual is these things will be recorded and available at least for a little bit of time afterwards. So you're going to be able to get all of the content of the conference versus sometimes we end up missing some really good sessions because you can't be in 2 places at once. This really is your training. So encourage you guys to kind of block this off. And again, and it's a free opportunity. We're going to have Oracle participating, customers participating, other partners participating. It's going to be a lot of good content. So please make sure you register, save this on the calendar. So what we're going to be talking about today, what's new in Essbase, kind of the current state and where we're at, and then what's happening in the future. I think most of you guys know in Terrell Consulting, we are here to support you guys in all things enterprise performance management and BI. So if you guys need any assistance in consulting, training, support, strategic assessments, roadmaps, figuring out where you need to be with all of the changing products, we would love to help you. So with that, we're going to jump into the details. I got a lot of good slides, good content to share with you. What's happening with Essbase these days? And there's rumor mills, and I think hopefully we have squashed all of those rumors that Essbase is going away. It definitely is not. It's actually securing its foothold within the Oracle environment. So they're actually the ERP applications, the cloud ERP, HCM. They're actually using Essbase under the covers in many cases to provide, again, powerful reporting analytics that we know that Essbase can do. They have Essbase as a platform service. So they've got over 500 plus pods that are using, again, kind of, they started to announce it or they started to roll it out as part of Oracle Analytics Cloud. They've since separated that, but there's quite a bit there. Again, Essbase is being used under the covers in EPM Cloud. It's also available on premises. So we know it's under the covers for Hyperion planning, profitability, and cost management. So there's about 15,000 pods using Essbase. And if you guys weren't aware, the new consolidation cloud solution is using Essbase under the covers. So if you know Essbase, like it has always been, it is an incredible technology and such a good skill set to have because it is used all over the place because it is so generally awesome. Of course, there's all the existing on-premise Essbase instances and cubes that we have. We've got a lot of Exalytics servers and customers that were using that kind of in the on-premise world, over 10,000 customers. So Essbase, definitely has a stronghold, very powerful technology. They continue to invest and grow, and so we'll learn about that today. Now, for a while, Oracle included Essbase as part of Oracle Analytics. And what Oracle decided to do was to pull it out. So they left Oracle Analytics, and really Oracle Analytics was kind of the OBIE. They took OBIE and they took Essbase and kind of put it together as one solution offering. And then they also created data visualization, modern BI features, and made that as part of Oracle Analytics. So now they're keeping kind of the dashboarding OBIE framework and the data visual framework together as Oracle Analytics, but they pulled Essbase back out. So that Essbase really is just back on its own the way that it always was. It's just kind of a standalone database. So again, Oracle Analytics can absolutely talk to Essbase and pull data and create data visualizations from Essbase, but as far as it being sold and managed within the Oracle world, it's really now kind of back on its own as an Essbase database. You know, on the roadmap that came from Karen Zubitz and Mike Larimer, Essbase is a standalone database and will be for all of the future that we're aware of. Again, we know sometimes these things change. So definitely they're real, they're not going away. It's out from underneath the platform as a service. It's actually now considered a database. And right now, the newest versions are available on the cloud using OCI, but eventually there's going to be an on-premise version coming soon, and we'll talk about that. So, you know, Essbase is sort of the center of the universe, serving the masses, whether it's cloud ERPs, whether it's our EPM cloud, whether it's our on-premise, or it's just our native Essbase cubes that we're creating for our different reporting and analysis needs. Again, standalone database serving the world. So does it have a future? 100% yes. I always throw in, it doesn't always make it in all of the Interval presentations, but Joe Altman once described Essbase as the magic filing database because it's very easy to find data. Again, you don't have to have SQL, you know, and it goes really fast. So it's kind of, you know, unicorns and, you know, Harry Potter wizard rainbows, and us being able to find information very quickly, slicing and dicing, zooming, pivoting, supporting ragged hierarchies, business structures, asymmetric reporting requirements, powerful calculations. I think most of you guys here on the webcast, if you're on the What's New, you know and love Essbase. That's why you're here today, right? So now what's happening is what are we doing with our on-premise Essbase cubes? You know, and what are the Essbase alternatives to us? So again, for a while, OAC Essbase was an option, but now that they've split the two, that's no longer a direction going forward. So if you have on-prem Essbase today, your options are 19C, 20C, or 21C. I'm going to talk about those in just a bit. There's a new freeform option I'm going to tell you about, and we'll kind of walk through all of those. From an Essbase upgrade option standpoint, if you're on-prem, you're going to eventually be able to go to 21C if you wanted to stay on-prem. If you are needing to move now and you're wanting to move to the cloud, then that's where our 19C, 20C versions come in, because those are the cloud-supported versions. If you were currently using OAC Essbase, that is eventually, I don't know if it's not supported is the right word, but they're not making any updates to that particular version of Essbase. So you're going to need to do a migration somewhere in the reasonably distant future to move your OAC Essbase instance to an Essbase 19C, 20C on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. That's what the OCI means. So safe harbor, and we've got a couple more slides on this kind of next year, that Essbase 21C, that's going to be the on-prem version. I mean, it'll be available in the cloud as well, but that's going to be the version where we're going to be able to, if you guys wanted to install it like you have today in on-prem, that'll be the version you'll be able to do that. So let's jump into what's new in Essbase. What's available today? Exactly today, except I didn't update the date, June 24th. So we have shared some of this content. Really, it's the same. So exactly today, continually evolving. So really, 19C is just the next version of Essbase. So it's available today on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. And again, 21C is going to be coming soon. If you want to do this, again, it's going to be, again, with the cloud, it's an out-of-place migration. Once 21C is available, that's going to be an out-of-place migration as well. If you have OAC Essbase, I mentioned this, that you're going to need to set up an OCI instance, and you'll then migrate your OAC Essbase cubes over into 19C on OCI. So some of the new features, right? What's new? So this is kind of your summary list, and then I'm going to show some more details as we go through the content. There's an enhanced hybrid engine. So hybrid has continued to grow in its support. And again, we're seeing hybrid being used in the APM cloud. APM cloud is not on the same Essbase version that's available in 19C. So we actually have some enhanced hybrid support, additional functions that are supported, faster in general, deeper feature integration with Smart View, data source platform integration capabilities. There's a scenario management feature. We'll talk about that. There have been performance improvements just under the covers. So when you guys, move and migrate over to 19C or upgrade, you're just generally going to see things run faster from the under the cover updates. From a UI standpoint, we have a whole new UI. We're going to get to see that in just a bit. And there's some new tools that we can use in our tool belt. Excuse me. Okay, so again, we're going to go through each of these in more detail. So I'm gonna keep moving on. What's the same, right? Is there going to be a big learning curve? There is not going to be a big learning curve. Your same Essbase cubes are supported, your BSO cubes, your ASO, your hybrid. Although what I do expect is a lot of those BSO cubes to shift over into hybrid. So make sure when you're planning your upgrade, you're planning your migration, that also, those BSO redesigns and kind of design updates and refreshers to convert it to hybrid should be somewhere in your roadmap, because there are some really powerful benefits in using those hybrid cubes. Again, Essbase still has its same sweet spots as far as supporting ragged hierarchies, powerful calculations, like all the things we know and love about Essbase. This, really is the same. What's new, again, are kind of this is kind of your list. And so again, when you're trying to educate other folks, this is your kind of one-page slide to help educate some of the other folks in your organization to understand why do you need to update. So again, we've got some new features, we've got new user interfaces, ways to build and interact with cubes that really are a little bit more, help us be a little bit more agile, a little bit more quicker. Easy file uploads, we're going to see some of that in just a bit. So if we look at one of the biggest things in the new Essbase versions is the web UI. So we have a new cloud web interface, and it looks a lot, really it's a little bit different than the EPM cloud interface, but the same kind of cards and clusters are the same, whether you're in Fusion Cloud, whether you're in Essbase UI, or you're in EPM Cloud. You've got these different cards and clusters, and then based on what you select, you see the options down below. Now we also have some new capabilities in Smart View and Excel. There's a new add-in called Cube Designer that allows us to export cubes, import cubes, build cubes, load data, run calculations. So it's kind of like your Excel version of EAS. Again, it doesn't look like it, but it's better. Now notice, and again, we'll talk about this here, that there's no more EAS. EAS is going away. So, and I am with you guys. I loved EAS, but I will be honest, I mean, I haven't been in it. It's at least been a year, maybe even almost 2 years. And really there's some big advantages to this new jet interface. So it's just kind of learning where you find things and where different things are. So, for the most part, it's really okay. And I know some of you guys are saying, no way, it can't be, but it really is. You guys will be fine using these new UIs. So you'll have different icons, and they've organized the content into being able to view, manage your list of applications in cubes. You now can look at jobs across all applications or for specific applications. There's a file directory, again, because originally the first version of Essbase, new version of Essbase was on the cloud, and we actually didn't have access in some cases. So you do now have access to the underlying cloud server, but when it was first released, we didn't. So we needed a way to be able to manage files, right? Export, import dimensions. And so there's actually a file management, which is way better, right? Because I remember in the kind of old days or the on-premise Essbase world, you had to have server access if you wanted to get into the file structure. So now all of that's been surfaced. So the cube, application cube database file structure is surfaced to you, and you can import and export using this file management tool. So that's an improvement on what we're able to do in on-premise today. There's a new feature called scenario management that allows you to create different scenarios for your Essbase cubes. So it's a completely brand new feature. This is super important in today's world, where what we thought we were going to be doing in September 2020 is totally different, right? So coronavirus has changed our life in a very dramatic way, and it's changed our businesses and our business plans. So you want to have tools like Essbase, and the scenario management allows you to very kind of quickly spin up different scenarios, run different calculations, different assumptions, different drivers in your existing cubes, and just kind of layer that in to help you plan out and see maybe the potential impact of taking certain actions for your organization. Security, managing security, your data sources, we'll talk about this in just a little bit. So in the new Essbase world, there is no EIS, Essbase Integration Services, there is no Essbase Studio. So where you're going to be managing that now is just here in the UI. So you don't have to go to a separate product, a separate tool. It's all embedded, and that's really contained in the data sources. So this is where you can maintain your connections, your data sources, where you'll be able to then, connect to those sources to be able to import data, build dimensions, create drill-through reports. Consoles, where they have kind of all the overall administration capabilities, and then Academy is where you can train. So if we see, we've got a couple of demos. See if I can get my demo to get started. I think it's my demo that's causing an issue. Oh, here we go. Let's go on. Okay. Alrighty. So, so this is the overall UI. So I'm logged in, and you can see we've got our applications list, so I can view all of the applications in a single view for the ones that I have access to. At any point, kind of your way of navigating is through inspect. So you can inspect an application. I mentioned we can see the files that are stored at that application level. We can look at any sources that have been defined, configuration settings, permission settings. It's hard for me to keep up with clicks. We can also see the different statistics and logs. So if you wanted to look at the latest application logs, you have the ability to do that. So if we inspect at a cube level, these are the same settings that you guys, kind of know and love. This is where we can view some of the higher level dimension information. We can see how many generations and levels there are, if we're going to name those, which I recommend doing if it makes sense for data visualization. We can see any files that are stored at the database level. Scripts is where we can define our Calc scripts, drill-through reports, Excel scripts, MDX scripts, report scripts, and any dimension build rules or load rules. This is where we can define filters. We've got our variables, lots. Really, it's almost a little bit more logical organization, I think, sometimes than what we have in EAS. So once you kind of get used to where things are set, all your same EAS commands are here and more. So being able to view the database statistics, look at your dimension storage settings. If you wanted to enable, the audit tracking of data, you can do that. If we want to set up partitions, partitions are set up and supported along with location aliases to facilitate those cube references. So that's really kind of a quick glimpse into the new Jet UI. The new editors, so for editing the outline, looks a little different. One of the things that I like is you can actually kind of pick and choose what properties you see across your column. So you don't have to click edit member property just to see, what time balance is set to. So you can kind of control this, and then from here, you're same, inserting in members, moving members, and kind of clicking and dragging. You can do all those same capabilities. Calc script editor, so looks very similar to the Calc script editor we had before, and we can do all of the same calculations that you've done in the past with Essbase. Security works mostly the same. Typically what you're doing is you're setting up your users through IDCS, pulling them in, and then you're going to apply your Essbase application security at the application level, much like you did before. So assigning application manager, database manager, user, you can create filters and assign filters to help with data access as well as, Calc script access if users have the ability to run Calc scripts. From a jobs perspective, this is where you can see jobs and you can actually create new jobs to import data, export data, run a rule, you can kind of do that all here within the jobs window. And then you can see kind of the status, who ran what when. You have lots of different kind of sorting and filtering capabilities, which is nice. There's actually kind of a mini version of Smart View on the web. So within the Jet UI, you have the ability to connect to a database, actually see data, zoom in, zoom out. This is helpful sometimes, if you've loaded data and you refresh, you just don't want to do a quick check. You can actually do that in the UI without having to jump back into Excel. You also have the ability to download the latest versions of all the different tools. So keeping up with SmartView is very important. You want to make sure you do that. You can do that here from the UI. There's also a lot of other utilities. So there's a command line interface if you decide to use an addition to Maxell. There's a Maxell client. The cube designer that I mentioned is kind of your way to build and manage cubes in Excel. Lifecycle management tool. So lots of different utilities that are going to be available here underneath the console. Console is also where you can see there, if you want to view your sessions, if you need to kill sessions, if you want to access the Essbase config file, you'd select on configuration, and then of course set up any variables, substitution variables that you're going to use for your cubes. And then, of course, there's a scenario management. So this is where I mentioned that you can create scenarios where it essentially creates sandboxes that allow you to create multiple versions kind of based on existing data sets. And this is where, you can kind of create and manage those. I saw one person raised their hand. If you raised your hand, I'm not sure I can unmute you, but if you want to post your question, in the question and answer, then I will try and answer it there. So I see you guys have raised your hands, but I can't unmute you to see your question. So if you guys can, and then what I'll do I see you guys have a number of questions, which is awesome. I am going to kind of get through the content and then I will go back through and address all of these questions. Are you all able to see me and hear my screen? Let me just do a quick check. I just want to check. Can you guys hear me okay? And can you see my screen? Is that y'all raising your hand saying yes? Yes. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Sorry. I appreciate it. Normally I don't have Zoom issues. We've been doing Zoom for a long time before even all of this mess. Okay. All right. So let's take a quick look at the outline editor. So again, this is where you have the ability to navigate within an application database, and you can view the outline. So you can see all the dimensions at once, just like you can in EAS. You can set properties. For new members, you can set multiple properties at the same time. So let's take a quick look at the demo here and kind of look at what the outline editor looks like. So here it's going to open up the outline view. Let me make sure my demo didn't pause. There we go. So you can see your kind of shortcut icons across the top. You can navigate in. Again, you can see some of the properties across the columns. You click inspect. You can actually view everything. One thing that is a little bit different is right now I'm in view mode only, which is kind of nice because you don't accidentally click something or move something that you didn't mean to. So in order to actually make a change, you click on edit. So it goes into edit mode so that you can then at that point, you can inspect properties, you can add children, you can insert, siblings, children, those types of things. And all of your same Essbase properties are here and available within the outline editor within the UI. So if it's an attribute dimension, we can associate attribute dimensions. If we want to look at the overall outline properties, so if we've got multiple alias tables, if we've enabled text measures in the Essbase cube, we have the ability to set those kind of outline properties, much like we did in the EAS editor. Okay. So dimension maintenance, how do we build our dimensions? So again, you can use your same dimension build rules that you had. The UI looks a little bit different. It definitely has improved from when it first was available. It was a little clunky, even more so than the online version. The online version, at least we all know how to do it after training. So it's definitely better. What's great is we have this new capability with Excel and using application workbooks and Cube Designer. I'll show you guys that in just a bit. And of course, you can do it manually in the web UI as well. There's also, of course, some different automation ways to do that. So again, you can run a job with a rules file and a text file. There's a DBX option, REST API, Maxell, and Essbase CLI. So there's, again, all those things can be automated just like you did in your on-premise Essbase version. So if we talk about Cube Designer and application workbooks, to show you this a little bit, it really is, again, you're going to have some of those cubes where you're going to be setting up, automated processes using rules and connections and sources that are updated nightly from ERP and et cetera. But in many cases, you think about, and what the power of the solution is that you may need to just stand something up very quickly, or you're doing the initial build of that cube, and you haven't set up all the integrations and everything. Cube Designer is like your fastest way to build a cube, and it's really easy to do. So it essentially is creating an application workbook with a series of worksheets that help define the cube structure. Now, what you can do is you can export an existing cube. They also have templates. They have a whole gallery of different samples of applications you guys can leverage. So you can actually export out those cubes as application workbooks, and then kind of update the Excel spreadsheets with your dimensions, data, specifics, and then re-import it as a new cube. So again, it requires a new extension within SmartView that's called Cube Designer, and it lets you to kind of build and maintain these cubes. So the application workbook's one of the main vehicles, and you can build the entire cube. Another thing that you can do with Cube Designer, I don't think I have a slide on it, but like honestly, if you have just a spreadsheet of fact data, with all your rows and columns, there's actually an option to build a cube based on just a fact data export, and Essbase can intelligently kind of look at the data and figure out what are the best dimensions to build it from. So it's pretty incredible that you can even have just Essbase try and design the cube for you, and or you can build it yourself. Again, I mentioned that there are multiple worksheets. So there's a cube setting sheet. You can define the generations, and then you define the dimensions. The dimensions can be seen in the screenshot that you see here. It's kind of a generational format. It also supports parent-child. So you can have just different dimensions for each one of your cubes, and then there's also one or more data tabs that can be used. So once again, the easiest way, and the way I start, is you can export out an application workbook from an existing cube or one of the gallery cubes. So you can pick here, I picked sample basic. I can check whether I want to include the data, include the calc scripts, or if I just want to kind of get the structure of the cube. So you can click run, and then it's going to export out that application workbook. You can do the same thing. You can also export out an application workbook within the web interface. And from there, you're just ready to then kind of update the workbook with your hierarchies, your members. And at that point, you can save it, and then in Excel, you can then, build your cube and import in your cube. You can also import in that application workbook within the web interface as well. So I know we're trying to have a session on Cube Designer specifically, so we can show you the details during that Hyperion Solutions Conference. That's one of the sessions that we are looking to have, because it's a really easy tool. I don't have time to show you guys all of that in today's webcast, but it's really easy tool to use kind of in this new Essbase world. Okay, data integration, connections, data sources, and drill through. So I mentioned that, Essbase Studio is going away, EIS is going away. So what you will have to do, if you're using those tools, you're going to basically recreate whatever you're doing there using connections and data sources within the new UI. So what are the different ways to load data in 19C? So we still have our same Essbase globals, right? It's just how we've always done it. That's going to be supported. I have actually done this a couple times. Data visualization within Oracle Analytics has the ability to create a cube, and it's really pretty awesome. Data visualization desktop, like if you're wanting to kind of filter and kind of do manipulation instead of having to do in Excel, which can be slow and painful, and especially for really big files, you can actually kind of upload your big data sets into data visualization, kind of do your manipulation, and then actually have it result in and generate in your Essbase cube. So that's one really cool tool to have. Again, if you have OBIE, I think you have access to data visualization desktop, so you can use that to actually create some of your cubes. Otherwise, it requires, I think, some version of an Oracle Analytics license to use that DV option, but it's really, really fast to kind of help manipulate and form a large set of data and kind of have it flow into an Essbase cube. There's also another tool we've used in the past when Oracle Analytics Essbase first came out. There's a tool, and it's still around, called Data Sync, Oracle Analytics Cloud Data Sync. It can actually connect into the Essbase cubes and it can load data. So we're not seeing that as much, but it is an option. We have OneCloud, which, if you guys are not familiar with OneCloud, it's a third-party integration solution that works really well with Essbase, EPM Cloud, and basically anything. So because it's third-party, it's got a lot of different connectors into different systems that are not Oracle-based. So again, those are kind of all of our different options. Smart View Cube Designer, I didn't mention, and then of course partitioning still works as well. So those are kind of all of your different options that you can use to load data. I'm not going to go through, so you guys will get these slides after the webcast. So I have lots of charts in here. This is kind of how I digest, and if I'm trying to kind of figure out what should I use when, what's the better option to use. So I've got kind of some charts and some use cases of when you would want to use the different options for importing data, for exporting data. But what I did want to talk to you, and I want to show you a little bit, is the Essbase connections and data sources. So now natively within the web UI, we can create connectors, and there may even be more than this that are available now, but definitely connecting into Oracle databases, SQL Server. So if you wanted to connect in and do, or if you guys are using SQL load rules to be able to load data, also connecting into other Essbase cubes as well. What's great too with these connectors, if you guys have Fusion Cloud, Fusion Cloud comes with a tool called OTBI, Oracle Transaction Business Intelligence. It's essentially OBIE that sits on top of your Fusion Cloud and your HCM. And it's got an RPD layer that basically has kind of mapped out, done all the logical, kind of modeling to connect to both your GL, your subledgers. And so what you can do in Essbase and these Essbase connections is you can actually connect to the RPD layer as your way to connect into Fusion Cloud HCM and pull data, load data from those cloud ERPs. So it can use again, kind of the OTBI connection, which is essentially, if you're familiar with OBIE and the RPD layer, it's essentially that for Fusion Cloud. And you can connect, so that way no files, that's kind of the goal, right? We don't have to worry about a whole bunch of files going around. We want to connect into these different systems to integrate our data, and we can do that. So it's different, just wizard-driven connections. So again, I remember way back when, creating my ODBC connections on the server. This is essentially what you're doing, right? Except I can do it within the web UI. So you're giving connection information, ID, password, to store that information. So you can create a connection to a particular source. Once you've got that connection, then you can create data sources. So the data source itself is where you can, create. So if you're connecting into a particular table and picking the columns and, things that you want to pull from that particular data source. So it's kind of writing your SQL that you're going to want to run and execute. That's your data source. And then you can use that to feed your cubes. The other thing that you can do is with these data sources and the connections is you can create your drill through reports. So I've got just a quick demo here to show you kind of how the drill through works. Again, we typically either had to use Essbase Studio or EIS to do this. Now we don't have to, right? So we can select the data source that we want to drill through. So my data source is called test. And these are kind of all of the different details that we're pulling from. And then I can define where can users drill from, right? So we want to be able to drill from, all years. We want them to be at a lower level market. So you define the drillable regions, which is good. And then once you've defined kind of the drill path, they're able to do it. So notice that you can also drill through to a URL. So this also gives you some capabilities, like if you're wanting to drill back into, your actual ERP system, you've got some flexibility there. So you can actually drill through to a data source that you create, or through to a URL that's provided. So kind of what does it look like for the end users? This is where I'm just in Smart View and I see this number March. So again, I can either, on my Smart View ribbon, or I can go to my right click in Smart View, I can click on drill through. Any drill through reports that show up for that particular intersection, I'm going to be able to drill through. And then that's going to pull in, and it opens up another tab and then I'll show you kind of the detail for the drill through. So pretty neat feature, and again, it's nice. It's just a little bit simpler, right, than what we had to do, because we used to have to, Essbase Studio had its own set of complexities and issues. Now it's kind of all together in one solution, and really makes it a little bit easier for us. If we talk about automation, so Maxell, you can keep on using Maxell. And that's really what most folks are doing for the most part. There are some, same functions that are supported. It's a new Maxell utility, so you want to download kind of the latest and greatest versions to do your automations. There's also a tool called CLI, Command Line Interface, and originally, to me, this is always kind of confusing, but originally, I think when OAC Essbase first came out, I think the thought was folks are going to use this command line utility because we didn't have the same type of access to the servers when it first came out, so we couldn't run Maxell, right? But now we can run Maxell without issues, so you can kind of migrate your scripts over. But know that there is a command line interface that does similar things. It has some administrative commands that you can use. Some of the commands are similar to Maxell. It's not quite as robust. So again, if you wanted to use CLI, you download that from the desktop tools, and then you can run it. There's also a utility to help you migrate your cubes. So there's two different ways to, well, actually there's a couple different ways to migrate your Essbase cubes over. And I will say, as an Interel, absolutely, we can help you guys. We have had a couple of clients where we kind of just did some mentoring, and they were able to do it on their own. So it just depends on how complex it is. My recommendation is, if you have the ability to help us kind of walk you through the first few and kind of plan it out, we can. But it's great, they've got some tools that can help you do this. So there's an LCM utility, there's the DBX tool, and again, there's I think certified versions, and then even if it's not a certified version, there might be some that still work. That's actually out of my area of expertise, but if anybody has any specific questions on that, you guys can let me know. The DBX tool we'll use, and it can pull over the metadata and the data from the cube. And what it essentially does create those application workbooks, and then you can use those to migrate it over. LCM actually works. I think that's kind of the preferred option that we will tentatively use, because it will get all the artifacts. So all of your Calc scripts, all of your filters, you want to pull all of that over. So DBX tool will work, and you can do that. And again, there's multiple ways to import and export. LCM is another way. So there are a few things that are not going forward in 19C. And for the most part, that's okay. So varying attributes, I remember when these came out, it was really exciting, but then it sort of didn't work. So for the most part, nobody's really using that. That's okay. Currency conversion. So older versions kind of had a pre-built currency conversion that you could use. That's not coming over, and that's okay, because really there are faster, better ways to do currency conversion than the way that old way did it. EAS is not coming over. That's okay, because we have this new Jet UI, we've got Cube Designer, lots of different ways to build a cube. Essbase Studio is not coming over, and that's okay, because again, I showed you guys, we've got kind of new ways to create the drill through reports, build cubes from our star schemas or our data warehouses. Totally fine, right? We can do that through the Essbase UI. Non-Unicode applications are not coming over as well. You just need to convert those. One other thing that I need to, it's not really a deprecated feature, but in the old version, or your on-prem version of Essbase, hybrid was not enabled by default. You had to turn it on. However, when you go to Essbase 19C, hybrid is the default. So if you just migrate your cube over, actually, I think what happens is it ends up being a hybrid cube. So you may want to turn that off. So definitely if you migrate over, again, what I mentioned is I definitely recommend you guys build some time in, because it's good to get converted over to hybrid anyway. But what happens is sometimes there can be slight differences in order of calculation. So it's more testing and validation that's involved when you switch. You can't just turn on hybrid and then just start working on the cube. You want to make sure that everything works the way you expect it to and calculates in the correct order. So and then there's also some tuning that you do when you do those hybrid cubes. So that's the other thing to just be aware of. We've already kind of talked about the, the what's different. You guys have seen that. What I will mention for you guys, that there is a BYOL, bring your own license, that is available to you. So if you can continue to pay your on-premises maintenance, I mean, you own Essbase, so you have Essbase, so you can move to Essbase 19C. Now, again, right now, the only option available to you is to do that on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. So you would still need to subscribe to an OCI instance. As I understand it, it's not that expensive. And again, you're probably paying support costs for your IT, your servers, your things that you're doing anyway. You may actually save some costs by going to OCI and having Oracle maintain the overall servers. But then again, you can go, you guys have Essbase, you use it, and you bring your own license, again, you move it over. If you were looking to purchase brand new, then I think Essbase is sold underneath the universal credit model, which is a different way. I am not the expert on kind of the pricing, honestly, because I feel like they change it all the time. I do think that the bring your own licensing has kind of stuck for a while. So for existing customers, you guys have a good path forward. So let's talk about 20C. Coming to you in the very near future. So the next release is going to have some additional enhancements, additional support for private deployments. It's also going to be able to define smaller data configuration volumes. So again, if you don't need kind of a full-blown, enterprise-wide deployment, you've got some different options available to you. Integration with Oracle notification services now, so that for different keeping up with different monitoring on your Essbase server, we can have notifications, and then integration with Oracle Cloud Infrastructure monitoring as well. So the day after tomorrow, 21C, coming to you in the somewhat near future. Again, safe harbor, hard to know. So the Essbase 19C on-prem is coming, except when it's on-prem, it's going to be called 21C. So basically, when you hear Essbase 21C announced, unless they change their mind, that's going to be the version that's available for on-prem folks today. You don't have to have the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure service. So it's only going to be supported on Linux. So Oracle Enterprise Linux, Red Hat, 7X. Oracle Database supported for the underlying metadata repository. Security with integration services, so IDS if you have OCI, WebLogic support, you can continue to use your shared services. Long term, they will eventually expand the operating support. It's going to be in a staggered fashion. Windows will probably be the next version to follow because it has the most of the customers, right? So next version that you guys, if you're on premise, you're staying on premise, you don't want to use OCI for whatever reason, you want to install on your own server, and it will be an out-of-place migration, that's the 21C version. All right, some of the features tentatively planned, again, all safe harbor improvements for the UI that I showed you guys. So again, right now, I think if you wanted to do currency conversion, you guys would, we would build that ourselves, but it looks like they're gonna be coming out with something standard that you can take advantage of. Being able to execute calculations, report scripts directly from the editor. Right now, you've got to go to jobs, switch over to jobs and run those as the jobs. So just some minor UNI improvements. Looks like they're going to try and get some more EAS look and feel for us, and then allow us to maybe customize some UI based on what we want to see. Support for an EAS Lite version, so we'll see kind of what that looks like. Their next generation of hybrid, so support for complex top-down formulas. So that's really where hybrid can occasionally kind of, we can see some performance issues as if it's needing to reference, some upper level kind of dependent type members that are having to be dynamically calculated every time. Those things can be slower. So again, there's design ways around it today that you can do, but it'll be nice when it's got some more beneficial support just under the covers to include that. And then of course, some Cube Designer enhancements as well. So again, 21C, this is where you install on your on-premise version. Again, it is going to be supported for the OCI as well. So like if you buy Essbase in the marketplace, you buy OCI, With both of these options, Essbase is still customer managed. So you install Essbase, you apply the patches, right? So on OCI is maintaining kind of the server layer part of it, but you are maintaining the Essbase version just like you guys are doing today. So now you're saying, well, I don't want to manage anything. I want Oracle to manage everything. I don't want to have to install the new version of Essbase. So when 22C comes out and I want to use it, I want somebody to manage that version for me. So if you want that option, there is a new option, new Essbase option that's in the EPM cloud. I don't know why they called it freeform planning, but that's what they called it. So in the EPM cloud, you can create what's called a freeform planning application. It's basically an Essbase cube. And what's great is it doesn't require all the standard dimensions and kind of the restrictions that it had for Oracle planning or Hyperion planning. Those go out the door. So this is essentially freeform planning is your Essbase in the cloud in a software as a service form. They have tools where you can just move over your outline files, or if you've got your LCM, you can import in your LCMs and it'll create their freeform cubes. So no required dimensions, hybrid BSO, ASO supported. Again, you can use SmartView just like you do. Now, instead of doing Calc scripts, you're going to be using Calc Manager. Honestly, I like better than Calc. The Calc script editor, I like Calc Manager. You can do a lot more with it. And then you get all the benefits of EPM, and I'll talk about in just a bit. They are looking for it to support really large cubes, large members. We were actually doing some testing with a cube that was quite large, had a whole bunch of dimensions. We had one dimension that had 1 million members, you know, and it supported it. So this is definitely something you guys want to look at if you're looking to get out of the like software upgrade patch, you know, kind of want Oracle to maintain those things for you. So again, we don't have the same restrictions that were required for planning. Those things go away. So these are some of the things like planning. Planning requires you to have an account dimension and an entity dimension scenario version. Period and years have to be separate dimensions. All that goes away. So you in new freeform planning, we could have a time dimension that has our years and our periods together. We don't have to have scenario. We don't have to have version. So it comes with your Oracle EPM Enterprise subscription. So again, just know when you see freeform, that's essentially Essbase. As I mentioned, we have a couple of different ways to create cubes. We can import in outlines. We can import in LCMs. What's interesting, and I've tried this, we can't import OAC Essbase outlines yet. I think they're working on that, but you know, most of you guys are likely on 11.124. I feel like everybody's there. You know, and there's a new on-prem Essbase 11.2 version that is available for EPM, so Hyperion planning. Which has its own set of complications. I think I've got a slide on that at the end. There's also a wizard, so if you just want to create a brand new cube from scratch in the EPM cloud, you can do that with freeform planning as well. So again, it's kind of a driven, wizard-driven process. It's underneath planning where you'll create this. Again, but it doesn't, you can build a cube that has nothing to do with planning or forecasting. You'll create a new application, and then at that point, you can go through the wizard, importing, reference an outline or an LCM, or you can just create the cube from scratch. From there, you know, again, if you've pulled over the data, you'll want to like test and validate everything. From a data integration standpoint, your data integrations change. So your Essbase load rules that you're going to recreate using a tool called data management that comes with your cloud solution. It's great, you know, it's just another way to load data, honestly, a different UI, and it's got some great mapping capabilities that we couldn't easily do with our Essbase load rules. So there are some advantages there with data management. Data management is also the tool that allows us to do drill through. You'll need to provision and rebuild security. So your Essbase security filters don't come over. So you'll need to kind of recreate those within the planning security framework. If you're using FR reports against your Essbase cubes, you can actually pull those over to within the subscription and or migrate them into narrative reporting, which is what we would recommend. You're going to need to rewrite your automation scripts. Right now, there's not like Converter that will do this for you. So the EPM Cloud uses an automation tool called EPM Automate. So you'll just convert kind of the automations you do from a Maxell standpoint into EPM Automate or into EPM jobs. So it's not huge, well, depending on what your scripting looks like, but the commands are pretty, it's not super complicated and the commands are comparable. Migrate to production, updating smart view connections. Now, one thing that is different, and it's for the most part not a big deal, is that you will be using like a planning connector to connect into your cubes, which in the past has been a little bit different than Essbase. However, I think we're pretty close to a full parity on that. So with the version that's out now, and then there's a few new features that are coming out immediately. So pretty soon, where I think it really doesn't matter. And then setting up your backup scripts and et cetera. So those were what kind of your post-it, once you move the cube over, the steps that you'll need to do. So from there you get all the benefits of the cloud that you actually don't get with native Essbase, right? So EPM Cloud comes with dashboards, editable dashboards. So we want to get feedback from users and they import into a dashboard, or we've got forms to show users and capture user inputs, and it's a little bit more kind of guided framework. Those forms are available both over the web and in Excel. We've got navigation flows. We've got, I mentioned Calc Manager, which I actually like better than the Calc Script Editor, approval process, and then if you are using FCC, if you are using Planning Cloud, it's like common administration, right? So how you load data is the same, how you automate it's the same, how you apply security. So it provides some consistency. So now this is not going to be for everybody, but for some of you guys, it may make sense. So again, when you're thinking about migrating, where are we going? And this is when I mentioned we have strategic assessments that can kind of help you evaluate your environment, your requirement, your user set to help you understand what's the right option for you. So should we move to freeform planning, or should we move to 19C? So now the next set of slides, I'm not going to go through in a ton of detail because you guys will get these slides afterwards. This is my high level, which one makes sense for me, right? So like the benefits of freeform planning in the cloud, common EPM platform, Oracle manages it, and I get all the extra EPM Cloud UI stuff. Now for Essbase 19C, if you guys are one of those enterprise Essbase houses and you guys have like 100 Essbase cubes, you guys are out there, maybe even more than that. That right now, Essbase 19C is probably your best bet when you've got that volume of Essbase cubes and departments use it, but it just depends, right? Now, and again, some of you guys want it to be customer managed. You want to control it, right? You don't want Oracle to manage it. So again, if you guys want to kind of control that process, that's where 19C makes sense. And again, if you're using other tools to connect in, Tableau, and we've seen a lot of customers using Tableau to connect into Essbase because you're using it to connect to other sources. That's really where 19C makes sense. Right now, Tableau can't connect into your freeform planning cloud. What happens with your freeform planning cloud is it's going to create it right now. It creates a different instance for each cube. And so, but with the EPM Enterprise license, you're not really limited. They've got an unlimited number of service instances, so you can create as many cubes as you need to, but it's just going to be maintained a little bit differently. And then we've got some tips and tricks on kind of how to manage a large number of cubes, but it's just a little bit different than what you've had in the past. We have heard rumors that how it is priced. So again, it's not ever going to be limited. You can do as many as you want. Right now it's the same price per user, however many that you have. Which is awesome, right? It's really exciting. However, we've heard some rumblings that might change. So if you went to Oracle and said, yes, we would like 50 different instances because we've got 50 different cubes, they may, price that differently than if you said, no, I've got 15 cubes that we're wanting to maintain. So, and again, there's going to be future support for multi-cubes, so they're working on that, but it's not available yet. So then the next set of slides is what I'm not going to go through. These are my tables and charts because this is helpful for me kind of comparing and looking at the two side by side, right? So kind of overall Essbase options, overall information, comparing user interfaces, right? So like with one option, what do I get versus another option? Data integration capabilities, like how we can kind of connect in. So again, you guys have a lot of different, you got some, I'm not gonna go through all this, but we'll send it to you so you can kind of see these options side by side, related to calculations, related to security, administration, IT support, So again, lots of good reading and some tables that you guys will just have for your reference. So with that, we've got about 5 minutes, and I don't even have any good summary slides for you guys. Mainly just know Essbase is here to stay. It's growing, it's changing, it's exciting. The web UI, you know, again, a little bit of a learning curve, but then you get in and you run, and that's good. And then the application workbooks, which again, I encourage you guys to check out during the solutions conference to see some of those things in action. So with that, let's see, actually, I think I had, let me just show, we'll go to questions and answers. We're in a What's New series. So next week, join Wayne Van Sluis, most recently announced Oracle ACE Director, who's going to be talking about the new features in Oracle Analytics Cloud. And then Terrence Walker will be taking you guys through FCC. We also have a retail virtual conference coming up. We got folks from Kroger, Lululemon, Ralph Lauren that are all going to be talking about all things EPM, BI, analytics. So it's going to be a really great day. So honestly, even if you're not in retail, it's still probably going to be some really good information. So make sure you guys keep aware of that. And then again, we've got our solutions conference. So let's go through some of the questions. One of the questions is Power BI going to be able to connect to Essbase 19C? I don't know the answer to that, so I'm going to take that and follow back up with some of our Essbase folks. So Andrea, I'll follow back up with you guys. Actually, what I may do with some of the questions that if I don't know the answer to, I'll add it in the PowerPoint, so when we send it out, you guys will have that answer. Another question is, do we think this option is ever going to be able to be stood up on AWS? I don't think so, but I will check on that question as well. So I know that would be nice. I think Oracle's really just wanting you to do the OCI and stand it up there. And again, it's really not, as I understand it, that cost prohibitive. It's pretty reasonable for what they're asking. But I will check on that. I think the answer is no for AWS, but we'll see. Will there be drivers to connect to SaaS sources such as Snowflake? I think yes. I think the answer to that's yes. So I know that we can do it with Oracle Analytics. And as I mentioned, Oracle Analytics has connectors there. And I think we can kind of, you know, we can take advantage of that. What I don't know for sure is if it's just native Essbase by itself. So I'm going to double check that. But I know that there is a way to do that. And I know that there are connectors built in. And again, if you use the third-party solution OneCloud, I think that can do it as well. So I think the connectors to Snowflake are there. I'm going to double check on that as well. You definitely can still see the logs within Essbase. There's actually like a logs card where you can navigate and see all of the Essbase logs, you know, and be able to download those and see those. And just like you did it, almost a little bit better because you can actually, well, and I think we can do this there, where you can do some different filtering based on dates and timing. There's another question on Power BI, so I'm going to follow up on that. I feel like one of our other Oracle or analytics practice folks would know that answer off the top of their head, but I do not know. How do you migrate from 19C to 20C? I'm assuming that would be user-driven upgrade, not like the SaaS upgrade. That is correct, right? So when we're talking about Essbase 19C, you guys are going to control the update, right? So that's where you go to the marketplace and you'll get the new version. You should be able to do that in an in-place option, but it's something you will have to do yourself. All right, so I see Essbase 11. I thought I had a slide on this, but I'm so glad this person asked. 11.2. So there's a new version of 11.2 out there. And again, 11.2 is supported for EPM. So that's your Hyperion planning, your HFM. And there's a lot of information about that 11.2 release. So with that, there's an 11.2.2 release of Essbase. So you, I'm going to like very carefully, maybe if Ali stops recording at this point, technically you guys have the ability to upgrade your Essbase version. If you're using full use Essbase, right now, technically you have the ability to upgrade to that 11.2.2 version, right? And that's going to work and be supported for your planning cubes. If you're using HPCM, that's going to be supported there. So this EPM 11.2 version is for your Hyperion planning cubes and your HPCM cubes. When you upgrade and you do that, if you're using full use Essbase, technically, like from a technical perspective, it will work for your native Essbase cubes. However, However, there is, I think there are some licensing things going on with Oracle on whether that is actually a supported thing that you can do. So if you guys have questions on that, please contact us after the webcast and/or ask your Oracle rep, because different reps are saying different things on whether that you can use that 11.122 version for your native Essbase cubes or not. Keep that in mind. And again, if you guys are using, like if you had Essbase purchased with OBIE, that 11.2.2 version doesn't apply. I mean, yes, correct. It doesn't apply to this 11.2.2. And then Andrea, I'm gonna double check on the Essbase Snowflake connector. I think the answer is yes, but I'm gonna double check on that. All right, we're at time. We're actually 1 minute over. So if anybody has any other questions, please reach out to us. Thank you guys for taking time today. And I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Thank you.